Good evening, everyone. We will be commencing the programming shortly. Could we request you to settle down, please? Could I request my colleagues to close the doors at the back? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Curtain Raiser event for Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue. Thank you for joining us this evening. And thank you to all our guests, honorable ministers, dignitaries who have joined us. Without further ado, let me now in a short second invite Dr. Samir Saran, who is the president of the Observer Research Foundation, to take over the proceedings. Dr. Saran, over to you, please.
Good evening and a very warm welcome on behalf of ORF, Observer Research Foundation, and the Ministry for Port, Shipping and Waterways. We are delighted that you are with us this evening for a very important day in India's journey in the coming decades, over the next few generations, as this country, which has recently developed wet feet and has embraced the maritime economy, charts a future for its engagement with the world over the oceans, through the seas, building capabilities, capacities, partnerships, and competencies to further regional, global, and national interests. When this idea was presented to us by the Honorable Ministry, and at this time I must in some ways thank the dynamic leadership of the Honorable Minister Sarbananda Sonowal, for architecting the idea of building a global arena that can shape the future of the ocean's economy. I can also see Minister Shantanu Thakur here, who's been a pillar of support, and of course Sanjeev Sanyal, who has been in many ways goading all of us to rediscover India's romance with the waters that served it over the past 2,000 years. And we thought we should bring all of them together, along with perhaps India's policy maven, the maverick of Indian public policy, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who has built imaginations of people on critical sectors. So we have brought these wonderful people together this evening. Ms. Malini Shankar, who's been managing lots of issues around maritime, and of course the senior leadership from various public sector institutions, Mr. Sahai, who's been working very hard. We thought we'll bring the star cast and the ensemble of thinkers who've been goading us to rethink and reimagine a future that India can have with these blue frontiers. And this evening we will hear from them. We will unveil the logo and the agenda and our ambitions around the project that we are undertaking, building the biggest global arena in the next few years to engage with matters that will involve all of us as we build our economies, build our futures, and build our communities. Without further ado, let me first turn to the one individual who will be singularly responsible for building the partnerships and the directions of India's engagement with the world. Let me invite Ambassador P. Kumaran to deliver a special address on India's global engagement and India's own imperatives in this particular sector. So, Mr. P. Kumaran, can I invite you to deliver the special address this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Saran. Honorable Shri Sarbananda Sonowal, Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterways. Honorable Shri Shantanu Thakur, Minister of State for Port, Shipping and Waterways. Shri Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa for India. Shri Sanjeev Sanyal, Member, Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Madam Malini V. Shankar, Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University. Shri Samir Saran, of course, the moderator for today, President, Observer Research Foundation, other esteemed guests, dignitaries and invitees, members of the Diplomatic Corps. Good evening and namaskar. The maritime sector is the backbone of global trade, with about 80 to 90% of the world's trade by volume being transported by sea. The efficiency and cost effectiveness of shipping make it the preferred mode of transportation for bulk goods and long distance trade. The smooth functioning of maritime routes is essential for the uninterrupted flow of goods, making them strategically important for global economic stability. Control over the seas is therefore a key element of national security and geopolitical influence. The maritime sector presents a vast array of opportunities for India in the coming decades, driven by our strategic geographic location, growing economic stature, and the increasing importance of maritime activities globally. India's coastline, spanning over 7,700 kilometers, coupled with its rich maritime history, positions us to harness the full potential of the sector. With 12 major and 200 minor ports, the country is well positioned to serve as a crucial gateway for international trade connecting the East and the West. The proximity to major global shipping routes, such as the Suez Canal and the Malacca Straits, positions Indian ports as vital nodes for transshipment and cargo handling. Opportunities range from port infrastructure development to the blue economy, maritime security, shipbuilding, and international trade. This session features a number of senior dignitaries and specialist speakers in the field. I would therefore like to limit myself to a few key points, particularly from the vantage point of the Ministry of External Affairs. As India continues to rise as a regional and global power, ensuring maritime security will continue to be a critical priority. The Indian Ocean is a strategic waterway vital for global trade and energy flows. However, it is also a region prone to piracy, illegal fishing, smuggling, and geopolitical tensions. India's maritime security strategy is centered around safeguarding its maritime interests, protecting its sea lines of communication, and ensuring freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean region. The Indian Navy, Coast Guard, and other maritime agencies require continuous strengthening and upgradation to address these challenges. India has also been forging strategic partnerships with like-minded countries such as the United States, Japan, Australia, France, UK, and the others to enhance maritime security cooperation. Initiatives like the Quad and joint exercises like the Malabar demonstrate India's commitment to maintaining a stable maritime environment. These partnerships also provide opportunities for joint development of maritime technologies, interoperability, information sharing, and capacity building. The Make in India initiative in the defense sector is encouraging domestic production of naval vessels, submarines, and other maritime defense equipment. By focusing on indigenization and strengthening our vibrant startup ecosystem, India can reduce its dependence on imports, create jobs, and develop a robust maritime defense industry. Dear friends, one of the primary areas of opportunity in India's maritime sector is the development and modernization of port infrastructure. The Sagarmala project, about which I'm sure several other speakers will talk about, aims to modernize ports, enhance connectivity, promote port-led industrialization and development, and create transshipment hubs. The development of dedicated freight corridors, multimodal logistics parks, and digital platforms for logistics management can improve the efficiency of supply chains, reduce costs, boost trade, and enhance its competitiveness in the global market. Honorable PM did the Bhumi Pujan for Vadhavan Port on 30th August. The expansion of the port will make it 3 times larger than JNPT, positioning it as India's largest port. This development will also place it among the top 10 ports globally and double the country's total container capacity to 298 million metric tons. The project's completion will alleviate pressure on Mumbai and JNPT and significantly transform the hinterland. India's shipbuilding industry continues to develop with significant potential, but not yet at the scale of our Asian competitors. To compete with them, India would need to significantly ramp up its production capacity, technological innovation, and global marketing efforts. India can perhaps carve out a niche by focusing on specific segments such as defense shipbuilding, repair services, and smaller commercial vessels. Strategic government support, including incentives and policy frameworks under Make in India, and collaboration with other nations in technology transfer and joint ventures can bolster India's capabilities. Reports that India is looking at a transformative shipbuilding policy aimed at enhancing the country's position in the global shipbuilding and ship recycling sectors are encouraging. Key components of the proposed initiative include a ship recycling credit note worth 40% of the scrap value of vessels recycled at Indian yards that can be offset against the price of a new ship built in India, in addition to fixed subsidies for new shipbuilding costs. The maritime sector, as we all know, is a major contributor to global carbon emissions, primarily through the burning of fossil fuels in shipping. The International Maritime Organization has set ambitious targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from shipping. This is a huge opportunity for India to leapfrog. In the coming years, there will be pressure on all countries to adopt sustainable maritime technologies. India can proactively take the lead by adopting green shipping technologies such as energy-efficient vessels, alternative fuels such as green hydrogen and green ammonia, and emission reduction technologies. This not only aligns with global sustainability goals, but also positions India as a responsible maritime nation. In addition to the technologies mentioned above, there are a number of innovative emerging technologies such as air lubrication systems, which can reduce drag on a ship's hull by creating a layer of bubbles, leading to lower fuel consumption, optimized hull designs, specialized hull coatings, wind-assisted propulsion, hybrid and electric propulsion, and waste heat recovery systems, which can hugely help improve energy efficiency and reduce fuel consumption. These can also be combined with green port infrastructure, which relies on solar and wind power within ports to reduce the carbon footprint of port operations. Onshore power supply, also known as cold ironing, which allows ships to plug into the local power grid while docked, reducing emissions from auxiliary engines running on fossil fuels. Advanced waste management systems in ports, which can process ship-generated waste, including ballast water, sewage, and garbage in an environmentally friendly manner. The digital transformation of the maritime industry is also revolutionizing operations. AI and machine learning can be used for predictive maintenance, optimizing supply chains, and automating routine tasks. Blockchain technology can also help streamline documentation processes by providing a secure and transparent platform for recording transactions, tracking shipments, and managing contracts. This reduces paperwork, prevents fraud, and speeds up customs clearance procedures. These technologies clearly enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and improve safety, making the maritime sector more resilient and adaptable to future challenges. I wish the participants of Sagarmanthan productive discussions when the event is held in November, and we hope that we can get some good outcomes from these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumaran. Let me move to our second special address this evening, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal. And for those of you who are familiar with him, you would know that he is someone who literally has written one of the most authentic novels on globalization, which describes India's old engagement with it. But he also has a few projects lined up in the future that excite many of us as well. And he's someone who certainly has understood the importance of engaging with this domain, and therefore we are delighted that he has joined us this evening, and I'm sure his contributions to the conference in the days ahead will help shape it. So, Mr. Sanyal, let me invite you to speak to us.
Thank you, Samir. Honorable Minister Sonowal, Honorable Minister Thakur, Mr. Amitabh Kant, Ambassador Kumaran, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very pleased, as Samir pointed out, because, the need to rethink India as a maritime country has been something that has bugged me for quite some time. India is the only country in the world which actually has an ocean named after us, the Indian Ocean. And yet, for decades after independence, we had a very landlocked view of the world. Maybe because our national capital happens to be in Delhi and, we are landlocked. It may be that's why most of our policies, the way we looked at the world, was completely landlocked. The good news is that this is now beginning to change significantly. One of the possible factors is, of course, that our Honorable Prime Minister comes from a maritime state. And in fact, that state has a very long maritime history. Gujarat, and specifically the port of Dholavira, is one of the oldest, perhaps the oldest port in the world. So some 5,500 years ago, there were Indian merchants setting sail from Gujarat and sailing all the way through to the Persian Gulf and setting up merchant colonies in Sumeria and Oman and Bahrain and so on. So this is a very, very long history. And in the subsequent thousands of years, some of the largest ports in the world were in India. On the west coast, there were the port of Muchiripatnam, or what the Romans called Muziris. Further up the coast, there was Surat and Brigukacha. On the east coast, there was Nagapatnam, Mahabalipuram, the port in Konarak. Yes, that temple there is there because there was a port there. And then, of course, in my home state of Bengal, there were huge ports in Tamralipti, now called Tamluk, near IIT Kharagpur, and the port of Chandraketugarh, just north of today's Kolkata. So there were these huge ports, and these ports were not minor ports. These were among the largest ports in the world. And if you go back to Roman records, they were aware of these ports in the Mediterranean. And yet, as I said, since independence, we had this peculiarly inward-looking, landlocked view of the world. Now, as we change out of this view, what really begins to happen is, it's not just, about ships and ports. It is our entire way we think about the world that changes. So if you have a landlocked view of the world sitting here in India, The only neighbors you think about are one friendly neighbor to our northwest and another friendly neighbor to our northeast. But if you have a maritime view of India, you will begin to have neighbors like Oman and the UAE. You will have neighbors like Indonesia and Singapore and even Australia. Yes, Australia is actually an Indian Ocean country. People think of it as a Pacific country only. It is also an Indian Ocean country. You have South Africa. And of course, the wider oceans to sail as well. So it changes the way we perceive the world. But it also changes the way we do economic policy. And I'll give you a few examples just before I stop. I know I have very little time. For example, the way we think of infrastructure. So today, barely 5% of India's cargo is transported by Indian flagged ships. Do you know that? Just 5%. India builds just 1% of the world's ships. That's ridiculous for a country with this maritime history that I just mentioned. We just build 1% of the world's ships. In fact, China builds almost 50% of the world's ships today. And if you combine it with Korea and Japan, they produce 93% of the world's ships. And we are not even at 1%. Clearly, we need to begin to think about the sectors we want to promote. Now, for that, one of the things we need to do is to rethink our ships and shipping as infrastructure. Now, a landlocked view always thinks of infrastructure as something nailed down to the ground, but our ships are actually floating infrastructure. And thinking of this as floating infrastructure changes the way we invest in it, the kind of subsidies we give it, and the kind of financing we give it. So I am a big advocate of the fact that we need to begin to think of Indian-built, Indian-flagged ships as part of our infrastructure, because in times of stress, whether it could be a war or it could be some sort of a global disruption, pandemic, or whatever it is, the ownership of our own ships is absolutely critical to our survival as an economy. So this is something that we need to do, and I hope that Samir, in your conference in November, this is something that you will take up. We need to build our own ships. There is also another reason why we need to think of this before I end, is because ships, for whatever it's worth, is a young man's business. No matter how good the robots are and how good AI is, you need a relatively young man to climb up and weld the bloody thing together. And I'm sorry, East Asia will simply not have the young people to do it. So it's our business to take. We should take it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Sanjeev, for the wonderful remarks. And clearly, between you and Ambassador Kumaran, you've already outlined an agenda. I don't know why we spent so many hours writing that agenda. We should have just taken notes today and you would already be there. But thank you so much. And I'm mindful of my age. Since it's a young man's business, maybe we can do conferences better now. Let me now invite Manli Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, to deliver her special address. And from shipbuilding and ships, let's move to the oceans, ma'am. And please join us. The mic is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Honorable Minister for Port, Shipping and Waterways, Shri Sarbananda Sonowal ji. Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways, Shantanu Thakur ji. Ambassador Kumaran, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, Mr. Amitabh Kant, Mr. Samir Saran, my colleague Rajiv Jalota, the Additional Chief Secretary, officers from the ministry, and all of you present here. At the outset, I'd like to felicitate the ministry and the ORF for taking this initiative for planning the dialogue on oceans. Samudra Mantana, or the churning of the ocean, is a major episode in Hinduism that is described in the Vishnu Purana. It actually explains the origin of the elixir of eternal life, Amrita. And Sagarmanthan is something under the leadership of the Honorable Minister, we witnessed the launch of Sagarmanthan, the real-time performance monitoring dashboard of the ministry. So surely a churning of things. The oceans, as we all know, and I don't have to repeat it too much, are as old as the universe and covers 70% of the earth and 97% of the planet's water, a huge repository of food, raw materials, minerals, genetic resources, etc. The World Bank estimated the global ocean economy to be worth $1.5 trillion annually. According to the OECD, approximately 40 million people are directly employed in ocean-based industries and many more millions indirectly. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that fisheries and aquaculture provide employment to about 60 million people, contributing $270 billion to the global economy. Likewise, the International Maritime Organization estimates that shipping contributes around $575 billion to the global economy, while the World Travel and Tourism Council states that ocean-based tourism generates $1.5 trillion in global revenue annually. The International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA, estimates that offshore wind, tidal, and wave energy could meet a substantial portion of the global electricity demand, with the potential to reach over 5,000 gigawatts by the year 2050. The global market for marine biotechnology is projected to reach $9 billion as early as 2026. Global maritime trade grew 12% between 2020 and 2021, and 30% of this trade was accounted for by emerging markets. India's strategic location makes it a crucial player in international commerce, like Ambassador Kumaran had elaborated. Linked to this trade is the significance of marine insurance. With a premium of 15,000 crore rupees, India's marine insurance market is expected to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 10 to 12% in the next 5 years. India has highlighted the development of blue economy as one of its prime initiatives. The Blue Economy 2.0 program was actually announced in the interim budget this year and covers the sustainable utilization of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods, and ecosystem health. Deep sea mining is a subset of the blue economy that involves the extraction of precious metals, polymetallic nodules, sulfides, etc., that are essential for modern technological advancements. It assists in diversifying the country's economy. The Deep Ocean Mission was approved in June 2021 and holds 2 contracts for exploration in the Indian Ocean. And regulations need to be developed that are consistent with the obligations of UNCLOS and the International Seabed Authority. India has an observer status in the Arctic Council and is envisaged to actively contribute to Arctic policy making. We are one of the 5 countries which are not located in the Arctic region but have an involvement in the region. Besides the impact on climate change and energy resource, the Arctic region holds importance for commercial shipping, opening up new routes such as North Sea Route, Northwest Passage, Transpolar Sea Route, and Arctic Bridge. Technological advancements cover remote sensing, icebreaker vessels, environmental monitoring techniques, and under ice navigation. Ocean governance is an area which has emerged as a critical field of interest for world economies. It covers a large canvas related to ocean resource management and regulation and includes marine biodiversity, fisheries, shipping, pollution, and maritime security. The significance of maritime laws and their implementation need to be viewed against the larger canvas of complex geopolitical equations and maritime security. The government of India has highlighted this as a key focus area, as is evidenced by policy formulations such as SAGAR and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. Given the geopolitical developments in the region, it is imperative that India enhances its presence and capabilities. Maritime security inter alia encompasses dealing with piracy of ships, illegal fishing, illegal trafficking, and cybersecurity, which is on the rise. The maritime industry is shifting its focus towards decarbonization, reduction of greenhouse gases, and transition to cleaner fuels. The IMO has set a target of 50% reduction in emissions by the year 2050. Together with the greening of ports, there is growing emphasis on sustainability, technology, and alternative funding sources. Autonomous ships, the emergence of artificial intelligence, the search for alternate fuels, the rapidly evolving technology calls for reskilling and upskilling on a large scale. India's research ambitions are commendable. Besides the Samudrayan mission and the exploration of renewable energy through tidal power, India's futuristic ocean research includes oceanography from space. Ocean studies, and that includes maritime field, promises to be one of the most significant areas for scientific involvement in the near future, and we need to stay strongly invested. Research and development in the ocean sector involves collection of a host of data, which in turn requires investments in satellites, research vessels, mote buoys, and autonomous vehicles. Cooperative ocean knowledge clusters oriented towards training, technology, and policy would enable the leveraging of the investment and capability. The Great Ocean Dialogue has to happen, and wishing all success for this exercise. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to now invite Mr. Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa for India, and someone who has shaped Indian imagination on a number of sectors before, to come and speak to us. I'm sure the blue economy would benefit from his energy and his advice as we embark on building this arena. Mr. Amitabh Kant, please.
Honorable Minister, Mr. Sonowal, Honorable Minister, Mr. Thakur, many distinguished guests here, Mr. Kumaran, Mr. Sanyal, Malini, Rajiv Jalota, Samir, all the distinguished ambassadors and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first compliment the Honorable Minister for this very unique initiative of Sagarmanthan, the Great Ocean Dialogue. My career started in Kerala State, and my first posting was in Calicut, which is now known as Kozhikode, where Vasco da Gama in 1498 landed and discovered India. And I was recently in Portugal, where at the Geographical Museum in Portugal, there's this wonderful painting of Vasco da Gama meeting the Zamarin king, who was the richest man in the world at that point of time. He owned all the pepper plantations. And when Vasco da Gama landed, after 5 days, he went to meet the king of Zamarin. And the Zamarin king, he was meeting the richest man in the world at that time, and Vasco da Gama was dressed in his coat, overcoat, tunic. He was wearing a cap with peacock feathers there. And the richest man in the world, the Zamarin king, was bare-bodied, and he was just wearing a mundu, a lion cloth around him. And look at the clash of culture. The Zamarin king tells his ministers that look at this idiot coming from Portugal. He doesn't know how to dress in the weather of Kerala. And the Vasco da Gama tells his, the 5 other people who had accompanied him that look at this man, they call him the richest man in the world, and he doesn't know how to dress. He's just he's bare-bodied and is just in his lion cloth. So the two different cultures. And later Kerala saw not merely the Portuguese, it saw the Arabs, the Dutch, the British, all of them came to Kerala, and Kerala became the melting point, the melting pot of all different civilizations from across the world, simply because of the oceans. And because of the oceans, it became a place which, it was the richest place in the world because of its pepper plantations. And when Vasco da Gama was leaving this place, the Zamarin king asked him, "Is there anything which I can do for you?" And he said, "There's only one thing which I'm requesting you." And he said that, "I want 5 plants of potted pepper." And the Zamarin king turned to his ministers, and the ministers said that, "Give him anything, but don't give him the pepper plants." But the Zamarin king said that all of you are nuts, because he can take the plants from Kerala, but he can't take the weather of Kerala. But the story goes that Vasco da Gama took these plants not to Portugal but to Brazil and planted them, and that's how the competition to pepper started. Because the Europeans never knew the art of marination, and they learned the art of marination through pepper because of that. And that is how trade grew. And trade, culture, all this became a part of the great Kerala civilization. So, oceans, to my mind, are critical because today they absorb almost 30% of the greenhouse gas emission. Oceans are important because they account for almost 40%, and many of us do not realize this, that they account for 30% of the greenhouse gas emission. They account for almost 40% of the global population living around oceans. Their livelihoods are dependent because of oceans. And therefore, if you want to make a difference to the world in terms of climate change, if you want to make a difference to the world in terms of livelihood, if you want to make a difference to the world in terms of trade, if you want to make a difference to the world in terms of culture, all this is a function of oceans. And much later, I worked in the fisheries sector of Kerala, where the first international development and aid project to India came from Norway. And it came through NORAD. That was the first development project, and it came for supporting the fisheries sector of Kerala. And that project led to the discovery of shrimps, the Penaeus indicus shrimps, which is now exported all across the world from India. And that's how India became a leading marine exporter. But it also led to transforming the lives of fishermen. It led to them discovering better quality of boats, better nets. They started going much further into the sea, and all this has been possible to transform the lives of fishermen in Kerala because of this support, because of this assistance and cooperation. So oceans do a lot in many, many ways to transform lives. They do a lot in terms of transforming culture. They do a lot in terms of pushing for the livelihoods of fishermen. And in the G20, the oceans were a very, very critical they played a very significant role in as far as India arriving at a consensus was concerned. And we had a Chennai high-level principles for sustainable and resilient ocean-based economy. They were adopted by the G20 leaders, and they had 9 different principles. And my view is that the principle 1 prioritized ocean health, principle 2 acknowledged the link between ocean and climate, principle 3 talked about intergenerational equity and gender equality through oceans, principle 4 promoted the use of marine spatial planning for integrated approach to oceans, principle 5 talked about leveraging science, technology and innovation, principle 6 spoke about protecting and utilizing indigenous and traditional knowledge, and principle 7 was about monitoring and evaluation, and principle 8 was about strengthening international cooperation, and principle 9 was about enhancing ocean finance. So ladies and gentlemen, the G20 high-level principles for sustainable and resilient blue economy, actually they address all the key issues where all the global leaders had focused on for marine environment, and to my mind, they are highly relevant to the themes of Sagarmanthan, the ocean dialogue. And to my mind, if the world has to grow, if the world has to provide jobs, growth with equity, and if India has to become a $30 trillion economy by 2047, if it has to raise its GDP by 8 times, and if it has to raise its per capita income by 9 times by 2047, the only way forward is through Sagarmanthan. The only way forward is through ocean dialogue, that we can transform both the lives of people, the citizens of India, and by bringing in sustainable development. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. That's an impassioned plea for all of us to invest in this domain in the days ahead. Let me now turn to the Honorable Minister of State, Mr. Shantanu Thakur, to deliver a special address this evening. Mr. Thakur, the mic is yours.
Thank you, all of you. Today is the great day because the ancient terms already we're going to use that Sagarmanthan, because we all know that Sagarmanthan once upon a time happened in India by the holy gods and the evils, and what that comes out from ocean, that we all know who lives in India. So in this great occasion, today here is present Sri Sarvananda Sonowalji, Minister of State, Port Shipping and Waterways, Sri Amitabh Kant, India's G20 Sherpa, Sri Sanjeev Sanyalji, Member of the Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council, Sri P. Kumaran, OSD, ER and DPA, Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chairman of Indian Maritime University, Dr. Samir Saran, President of Observer Research and Foundation, and my ministry, collegians and distinguished guests, all of you to Namaskar. As India marches towards become a $10 trillion economy within the next decades, it is imperative to acknowledge that India's decision as one of the world's fastest growing economy will increasingly shape the global economy, just as the global economy will influence our nation's trajectory. In this context, the ocean stands as a gateway to India's journey towards become Viksit Bharat. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Damodar Modi ji vision of developed and prosperous India by this maritime, the complete 100 years and the independence nation by 2024. The ocean, which facilitated 19% of global trade, connects nation, economic and cultures. As this influence in the international arena continues to grow, we will not only be more assertive of furthering India's oceanic economy intents and play a crucial role in redesigning global political and financial governance, but acknowledge our responsibility to champion the need of the global south. The ocean economy must become an integral part of the global reforms India will collaborate with like-minded partners of creates fairer oceans governance systems that reflect a principle of equity, sustainability, and shared prosperity. Our approach will be balanced with a commitment to ensuring that benefit of global ocean economy are shared of common goal of world. This is a vision of mutual growth, where the prosperity of one region contributes to the well-being of all in the spirit of our Prime Minister's vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. It is in this spirit of collaboration and shared destiny that we are gathered here today to launch Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue. At the heart of these initiatives lies the recognition that flourishing ocean economy depend on strong partnership. Sagarmanthan will be an enabling platform for many such partnerships and alliances, bringing together diverse perspective and expertise to craft and comprehensive the forward-looking frameworks for ocean governance. We will work collaboratively with global policymakers, scholars, and the industry to identify high-impact Indias that can galvanize the blue economy. Our goal is to align India's maritime priorities with the broader objects of the international community, ensuring that our contribution to ocean governance are both meaningful and far-reaching. By doing so, we can ensure that benefit of our thriving oceans economy and shared equitability among these nations, particularly those in this global south. In this long run, it is our vision that Sagarmanthan will establish India as a leading voice in global conversations around the blue and maritime economy. And just like the special episodes of Sagarmanthan narrated in these Purans, it produces new ideas and energy benefiting all humanity. In that sense, Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue, is a pivotal initiative that reflects not only our aspirations but also our commitment is a prosperous future for all. As we embark on this exciting journey, I invite all the stakeholders, governments, initiatives, businesses, and civil society to actively participate in the upcoming dialogue. Your expertise, insights, and commitment invaluable as we work together to shape a comprehensive and forward-looking oceans governance framework. With that word, I am doing conclude now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we move to the next segment of the Curtain Raiser event, which is the launch of our website for Sagarmanthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue, the promotional movie of the dialogue, and the logo. Now, may I request the Honorable Minister Sonowal, could you please do the honors of launching the website, the movie, and the logo?
The need of the hour is human-centric, collective efforts and robust action that further sustainable development.
It is now my extreme privilege and pleasure to invite on stage the Honorable Minister for Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Shri Sarabando Sonowal, to stage to speak to us. He is the driving architect of this effort, and his energy is enthusing all of us to put together this very important dialogue and arena for discussions, debates and solutions for the future. Honorable Minister, sir, may I invite you on stage.
Namaskar. Sagarmanthan, the great ocean dialogue. हम कह सकते हैं महासागर में संवाद. आज कार्टून रेजर्स इस कार्यक्रम में हमारे बीच उपस्थित respected Minister of State for Port, Shipping, Waterways, Santanu Thakurji, our distinguished speaker this evening, respected Amika Kanji, respected Sanjeev Sanalji, Madam Dr. Malini Shankarji, respected P. Komaranji, and respected head of missions and our friends from various embassies and high commission, officials of the Ministry of Port, Shipping, Waterways, Ministry of External Affairs, Observer Research Foundation, and respected President Dr. Samir Sharan, Observer Research Foundation, friends from the media, academia, and industry. Good evening to you all, and today I believe this particular moment is very important for our ministry and for our country also. And as you know, under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, now India is the fastest growing economy in the world. Last year, India hosted a very successful and decisive G20 summit with the philosophy of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. And I'm really thankful to Amitabh Kanji, जिन्होंने सारे कार्यक्रम को बहुत सफलतापूर्वक संभाला. And especially under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, India, with the help of the 140 crores population in the country, the G20 was a grand success, and this has inspired the entire countrymen to work together in this spirit of team, and also because of integrating India with this powerful vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. Now we are all marching towards 2047 to become the self-reliant nation and the developed nation in the world. Unlocking the path towards inclusive, sustainable growth has been the cornerstone of our presidency. Over the last decades, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, India has provided substantial global leadership, whether in our role as the pharmacy of the world or as a first responder in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief at a global level, or our proactive action towards climate action. Our partnership are founded on three core pillars: cooperation, collaboration, and co-creation. India-led global initiatives such as the International Solar Alliance, Mission Lifestyles for Environment, and the recently launched Global Biofuel Alliance have substantially strengthened the global transition towards a low-carbon future. The spirit of Vasudeva Kutumbakam also encompasses our commitment to building an inclusive and collective future. The inclusions of the African Union as a permanent members of the G20 is an example of our intent translating into action. Dear friends, we work with the motto of transformation through transportation, whether it is connecting the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean through India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, or opening immense trade and economic opportunities for the landlocked countries of Central Asia by building the international north-south transport corridor. The goal is clear: Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. In the same spirit, under our Active and Neighborhood First policy, India today leads the regional transport integration efforts, particularly with our BIMSTEC partners. Dear friends, in the maritime sector, over the last decades, India has taken several significant steps towards decarbonizing and digitizing our maritime supply chain economy. We are one of the first large economies to have prepared a detailed green transition action plan for our ports and harbor craft and inland vessels. Our Green Transition program will not only benefit India, but also benefit and serve many other countries in their climate transition. The Prime Minister has provided decisive guidance to the Maritime India Vision 2030 and the Maritime Amritkal Vision 2047, which outline many critical initiatives. These initiatives have significantly enhanced the efficiency and performance of Indian ports, strengthened our national waterways, and enable large-scale coastal employment and capacity building. One such iconic project has been the development of a greenfield mega container port on India's west coast. Just 2 days ago, on August 30th, the Honorable Prime Minister laid the foundation of Badawan Major Port. Being built with an estimated investment of $10 billion US, the Badawan port development will create around 100,000 jobs during construction and over 1.2 million once operational. This mega port has already received substantial global interest, including from Singapore, PSA, and Denmark's APM terminals. The result is that India today has become one of the largest market and destination for ports and shipping sector investment. In the most recent Container Port Performance Index by the World Bank, 9 Indian ports find a place among the top 100 of the world, with Visakhapatnam port in the top 20. This global confidence in India's growth story was also reflected during the 3rd edition of the Global Maritime India Summit held in October 2023. We received over 119 billion US dollars of investment commitment. Dear friends, today we mark a significant milestone. We gather here to witness the launch of Sagarmanthan, the Great Ocean Dialogue. I'm also very happy to announce that the inaugural edition will be held this year on November 18 and 19 in Mumbai. Sagarmanthan is inspired by the ancient Bharat wisdom of discerning the oceans, which led to the emergence of the nectar of immortality, Amrit, which benefited all existence. This annual dialogue, co-hosted by the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways and the Observer Resource Foundation, represents a crucial step forward in our collective efforts to address the challenges and the opportunities associated with our ocean. Our dialogue aims to share ideas, experiences, strategies, and solutions and create a more sustainable and equitable future to the greater common good. As we embark on this journey, I echo the words of Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, who said, "Our security and prosperity are linked to ocean." I invite you all to the inaugural dialogue in Mumbai this year on November 18 and 19. Let us work together to harness the immense potential of our oceans and seize the opportunities that present towards an inclusive and sustainable future for all. With these few words, I again extend my heartfelt thankfulness to all of you present here today, and particularly our distinguished speaker who have contributed to making a very, very important kind of generating interest this particular journey. And I believe with your words, definitely whatever event we are going to have in the near future will make a great difference and giving us a lot of encouragement for the future course of action with our united efforts. With these few words, I conclude. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we move to the next segment, which is the family photo. Could I request those sitting in the front to please join us on the first step? Could I also request the ambassadors, the high commissioners and the Sade who joined us, the head of missions, to join us as we take a family photo at this curtain raiser event. Please join us on stage, ambassadors of Argentina, Armenia, High Commissioner of Australia, Georgia, Italy, Norway, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Greece, Seychelles, New Zealand, Romania, Costa Rica, Poland, Latvia, and Slovenia on stage, please.
Sorry, please come in front. I have one close-knit family, connected by the ocean.
Thank you all for joining us. Could we now invite you to join us for dinner? Can I request my colleagues to escort the heads of missions and dignitaries to the seated dinner, please?